The kids showed India the reality. Look where these kids brought this government to. This government, this Prime Minister who says, I will not speak to press, I will not speak to press, I will speak to the people directly, and that will be a monologue, no dialogue and all that. This Prime Minister not only had to speak, but had to agree to everything these kids say. Bharatiya Janata Party is shaken. They never thought that these young kids could shake this country so much, shake this country out of all this communal divisive politics, Hindu-Muslim politics, shake this country and ask and make us smell the coffee. These kids could do that. Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. So before I get into my editorial, let me give you the update. When I was recording this show, the update is that representative of CJP, Cockroach Janata Party, just met JP Nadda, the Union Health Minister. Now this is funny. They meet the Health Minister for Education, Railway Minister for Defense, Defense Minister for Railways. I mean, this is kind of confusing. But anyway, so coming back, they met the health minister and discussed education. And the health minister has agreed to two out of their three major demands, principally agreed to two out of their major three demands. One, what he has agreed to is to pay a compensation of 1 crore of rupees to the kith and kin, the family of the deceased children. Second, he has agreed to take no action, no FIRs against the protesters, the CJP protesters. And third, he has asked for 24 hours to get back to the protesters on Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation. This is where it stands. So more or less, I think the protest has been successful. The protesters more or less got everything, almost everything that they asked for. At least as of today, it looks like that. Tomorrow is a different day. Tomorrow is another day. I don't know. But as of today, it looks like that. And according to the representative, like I told you, they have been given a principal approval. They have agreed in principle, as in the government has agreed in principle. So that's where it stands. Now my editorial. There are a couple of things that I want to say. I think, and I say this very proudly, I say this absolutely with a lot of pride. The kids showed India the reality. The kids showed India the reality. You know, I was watching a reel yesterday, a young little girl. This girl was actually, making her reels where she said, I never had a problem with a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or anybody. My problem was with the government. And all this while, I was told that Muslim is a problem or a Christian is a problem. And actually, it was nothing like that. A very simple statement, but what a real statement. These kids opened our eyes. It was brilliant. I was happy because I saw a lot of these kids talking Gandhi. A lot of these kids talking about what Gandhi had said and what Gandhi did and what Gandhi wrote. A lot of these kids were talking about Baba Saheb Ambedkar. Somewhere down the line, a lot of adults and a lot of so-called leaders that we have today, they had lost their respect for Gandhi. They were praising and celebrating the Gandhi killers. And here we had kids, small kids, young kids, 10 years old, 15 years old, 14-year-old kid talking about Gandhi and his philosophy and how it makes a difference to life. I was absolutely proud. And you know what? I am very happy. I'm happy because India is in safe hands. India is in very safe hands. We spoiled India. We messed up this country. But the future, they'll handle it better than us. I'm very convinced. The second point I wanted to make is look where these kids brought this government to. This government, this Prime Minister who says, I will not speak to press. I will not speak to press. I will speak to the people directly and that will be a monologue, no dialogue and all that. This Prime Minister not only had to speak, but had to agree to everything these kids said. This Prime Minister and this government, which never spoke to these kids were demanding answers from the government for what? Last 2 months, 3 months? Government didn't even bother to acknowledge these kids. The government had to now come down and talk to these kids. Not once, but almost every second day, the health minister is meeting these kids. So finally, the government had no option but to hear these kids, listen to them. I saw big leaders in this country change ideology, change their soul, sell their soul because they were afraid of a ED or a police coming and arresting them or a CBI coming and arresting them. I saw big leaders who claimed to be one of these, people who rule the state and all that. I saw those leaders literally on their because of a ED action or a IT action or a CBI action. These kids proved that, tear gas, pellets, water cannon, nothing, lathis, nothing makes a difference to them. In fact, there were kids protest where kids actually called the cops and asked them to, shower water cannons at them. They went beyond fear. कहते हैं ना, डर के आगे जीत है, and that line I like a lot. They went beyond that fear of theirs. They went beyond the fear, which we couldn't go, which most of us elders, adults couldn't go. Kids went. And it was not that they were treated with kids' gloves. Let me also tell you that. They were as brutal as they could get. Delhi police was as brutal as they could get. And I still, every time I talk about Delhi police, I will also say that there were policemen who also got hurt. But the fact remains that end of the day, kids were beaten up. They could have handled it better. They could have handled it much more professionally. They could have handled it much more smartly. These kids were beaten up, but yet they were beyond fear. Beyond fear. Lot of, like I again say, lot of politicians learn from them. This is what real courage is all about. This is what conviction is all about. Most of those kids had nothing to do with paper leaks, but they were there to show their solidarity. They were there to show that they are together. They were there to show that the youth of India are together. Look at that. Look at that. The ultimate show of selflessness, the ultimate show of courage, the ultimate show of conviction, the ultimate show of patriotism. They wanted to make this country better, and that's why they were there. They wanted to reform the education system of this country. A politician sends his children out. His children studies abroad. And he talks about making India better, India great. Vikasit Bharat. Children abroad. These kids stayed and fought for this country's education system, their country's education system. I think kudos to them. And of course, a politician keeps on fighting. Political parties, AAP is trying to kind of own the events. The Congress went and did the event somewhere else. AAP was very peeved off as to why they did the event there. Why couldn't they do the event here? And all of that happens. That too happened. That too we saw. Sonam Wanchuk has broken his fast, and he's kind of now all ready to move on. So that too happened. These kids showed us that they no longer require a Sonam Wanchuk or a Dipke to lead them. They are self-motivated. They can lead themselves. That too happened. Another very interesting factor. Use that same toolkit. First, call it foreign funding. Second, say that there are foreign elements, foreign hand that is supporting this protest. Third, then say there are some terror activities. Fourth, then bring in religion, say it is all anti-Hindu. This typical toolkit, I spoke to you about that 2 days back. These typical toolkits, all of them were used. Unfortunately, right from 2014 to now, most of the protests, these toolkits were used. And at that point in time, these toolkits actually worked. But this time, these kids were amazing. Amazing. Their strategic planning was better than Congress, BJP, AAP, everything put together. For every toolkit, for every allegation, they had a creative solution. Brilliant creative solution. Look at the memes, look at the social media posts, look at the communication, look at the posters, look at every creative element that they brought in front of you, every communication element that they brought in front of you. I am telling you, I worked for a few of the best agencies in the world, and I tell you, I have not seen such beautiful communication in my entire career. That's what these kids brought to table. And therefore, one had no choice but to listen to these kids. So a lot of learnings. And I learned a lot from these kids. They inspire me. Indian kids inspire me. I swear, I tell you this with absolute honesty. I am truly inspired by the next generation. What a brilliant generation. Possibly this is how our forefathers would have been, the people who fought for this country, the people who laid their lives for this country, the people who were fearless. This is how they would have looked. Somewhere down the line, we had lost all of that. India is back. That's the point I wanted to make today. I'm so proud. We'll wait for what happens tomorrow. We'll wait for whether Pradhan actually resigns, not resigns. To my mind, I think he'll finally resign. To my mind, I think Bharatiya Janata Party is shaken. They never thought that these young kids could shake this country so much, shake this country out of all this communal, divisive politics, Hindu-Muslim politics, shake this country and ask and make us smell the coffee. These kids could do that. I don't think Bharatiya Janata Party ever even thought of it that way. Now they have. So possibly, I think Dharmendra Pradhan would resign and they would adhere to everything that these kids says and move on. But the fact remains that let us not believe that everything is set right. The questions that you still need to ask the government is, why did the government ignore when these kids were shouting? Why did the government ignore when those kids were dying? Why did the government ignore? Why did the government not call somebody then and say that, listen, why is the education minister not responsible? And why is the education minister not rendering his resignation? Why didn't the prime minister ask? The prime minister had to wait for all this to happen. So it is not by free will that the government has taken a decision, or it was not for the welfare of the youth, like the Prime Minister said, that the government has taken the decision. They have taken the decision because the youth forced them to take this decision. And that's the unfortunate part of today's story. The government has not taken the decision with their free will. It was forced on them. And that these kids forced on them. That's the point I wanted to make. Till I see you next time. That's tomorrow at 10. Namaskar.